Welcome to this week's edition of the Dakota Angler 2-Minute Fishing Report. Well, this past week's weather really wasn't that bad. You know, we've had our periods of showers, a little bit of wind in some areas, but really the pressure hasn't changed dramatically, and that has really helped the bite around the area. A lot of people are reporting, limits of walleyes, some really nice limits of walleyes, some really nice walleyes being caught as well. So again, this is the time of the year, I think we need to be thankful that the fish are biting and the weather is cooperating right now, and a lot of people are getting out and enjoying it. And I hope all of you can as well as this next week, because again, right now things are going quite well. Up in the northeastern part of the state, the lakes that produce walleyes included Walleye, Bitter, Dry Lake by Clark, Hazelton, North and South Rush, Drywood, Blue Dog, Midland, Indian Springs, and a few being caught at Long as well as Oak. Down the southeastern part of the state, those lakes included Thompson, Ponset, Dry Lake by Willow Lake, Sinai, Campbell, Madison, a few being caught at Scott Slough yet, as well as Brant, North Island, and Twin. And remember, Twin is the trophy lake. Now, Big Spirit down in the northwest Iowa continues to do well for walleyes, and then also the Missouri River. Up and down the river is doing really well. If you're looking for a trophy fish right now, I'd go out on Oahe. There's plenty of nice walleyes being caught there. I think the quality is a little bit lower down in the Platte area, but still you still coming away with some decent limits of fish. You just need to sort a little bit more than elsewhere on the river. Now, what are guys doing to catch the walleyes? This time of year it kind of changes up to more of a crawler bite in many areas. A lot of people are using slow death rigs at this point in time. You're using a half crawler. Other people are using other types of lures, and that's what I want to show you right now. Some that are using a little bit more aggressive lure. The Rip and Wrap from Rapala. And this is one of the new colors of the past couple of years. This is the Voodoo Haze. This is, again, very popular. Again, as we talked about this past week, the week before, different colors of that spectrum, purple, yellow, as well as orange. Then also one of the overlooked and underrated lures that we sell a lot of every year is the Mimic Minnow. This is the perch pattern. This has been one of those things, again, you don't have to worry about rigging the plastic on the jig. And again, year in, year out, it produces plenty of fish, to say the least. Now, as far as other plastics are concerned, the Mooch Minnow from Rapala, the Crush City Mooch Minnow, again, has been doing very well. A finesse type of bait. Again, it works really well when you team that up with forward-facing sonar. And we'll talk about the line that you can use as well in the next segment. Then there's something else new from Walleye Assassins. Walleye Assassins are typically one of our more popular baits, plastics that we sell year in and year out. The paddle tails have been very popular. Now, they also came out with the Elite Shiners. This has a very similar profile to the Kitex, and the Kitex are very popular, to say the least, but the one knock on a Kitex that some people will say is that they don't last very long. You catch one or two fish on it and you got to replace it. Well, the Walleye Assassins will last a little bit longer. So if you haven't seen the Elite Shiners from Walleye Assassin, make sure you stop on by here at the store, because we have a great selection of that bait on hand. In this week's edition of Todd's Tackle Tips, we're going to again talk about line, because a lot of people talked about our segment last week on the color of the lures, and then they came in asking, well, what type of line should I use? And depending on what type of fishing I'm going to do, and that's a very valid question. There's a number of different line types out there, as well as different line companies. And so we're going to kind of explore that just a little bit. Again, there's three main types of line out there. And one of the first ones and one of the oldest ones is the monofilament. There's nothing wrong with using monofilament. A lot of people will sit there and say, I need to use something more modern than what monofilament is. Folks, today's monofilament is not the filament that your dad or your grandfather used years ago. It has advanced a lot. I think there's some great uses for monofilament yet. Whether or not you're using it on bottom bouncing reels, whether or not you're using it for casting crankbaits or casting jigs and plastics. A lot of people will use monofilament for panfish lures, panfish fishing. And I think that's a great idea. So there's a couple of different types. You can go with what they call an XL or an XT. The XT is going to be a little bit tougher, a little bit more abrasion resistant than what the XL. That's made more for casting, for jigging. So keep that in mind as well. Now you can go with the Trilene or the Suffix line. They're both going to be very similar to it. Now the other option is going to a fluorocarbon. Now I should say the disadvantage of monofilament is that it's going to have a little bit more memory than what other types of line will have. Now, other lines such as the fluorocarbon won't have as much memory and will be a little bit stronger and a little bit more invisible to the fish out there. So a lot of times people may not use an entire spool of fluorocarbon, but they'll use a fluorocarbon leader tied to a braid line. And that's what we're going to talk about as well. There are different types of braid out there. You can, one of the more popular ones that have been used for a number of years is the Fireline from Berkeley. That comes in a number of different poundages as well as different colors. And then also Suffolk has their own version out there. The 832, that's probably one of the more popular ones that we sell as well. You won't get as many wind knots as what you will in other types of braid. And the advantages of the braid, as well as I should say, Power Pro is another braid that a lot of people will use as well. But some of the cases where you'd want to use a braid, whether or not you want to jig with it, cast with it, whatever, but it's going to get a lot more strength to it, and it's a lot more sensitive as well. So, and then with the smaller diameter line, you can get a lot more line on that spool than you otherwise would be with, with monofilament. But a lot of people will tie a fluorocarbon leader to this, especially for certain times of the year for walleye fishing. Other people will believe that not to do that. They'll tie directly to that lure because they don't want to have another point of failure. Whatever you want to do, it's up to you. Now this year there's two new types of line out there made for forward-facing sonar. The first one is the Suffolk Revolve right here, and then also Berkeley Forward. Both of these lines right here are geared for forward-facing sonars. That doesn't mean that you can't use them if you don't have a forward-facing sonar. They're made for casting long distances. They're going to be a little bit, let's say wind resistant, not as many wind knots at all as the other types of braid. The other thing is with a forward-facing sonar, it will slow the fall, slow the descent, and that comes in handy when you're targeting fish out there one way or the other on using that forward-facing sonar. So both of these, again, I think are going to be very, very popular this year. The one disadvantage is they're a little bit more expensive, but if you have forward-facing sonar, cost shouldn't be much of a concern. These are also very popular when you're targeting walleyes on forward-facing sonar and using bobbers. So you're targeting bobber fishing. That's been working really well. So again, whether or not you're jig fishing, you're trolling crankbaits or whatever you're going to do, there's a certain line that you want to use. And make sure you stop on by here and make sure you ask us the questions that you want to have answered, because that's what we're here for. And now it's time to take a look at a few photos that you sent in to me this past week. And remember, folks, if you'd like your photo included in next week's version of the 2-Minute Fishing Report, all you have to do is send the photo to me, and you can do that by sending it to todd@dakotaangler.com. And before we end this week's report, I want to remind you of our two ongoing promotions, or contests, if you will, that run through the entire month of June. The first one is the Minnow Raps. If you catch a walleye using a Minnow Rap, make sure you take a photo of that fish with the lure in its mouth on a bump board. To give the correct length. And the top 3 longest walleyes through the month of June will receive a prize. Now, if you measure that walleye on a Dakota Angler bump board and you finish in the top 3, you will also get a bonus prize as well. So again, keep that in mind. Minnow Raps as well as the Dakota Angler bump board. Now, the second contest, if you will, is a bush light photo contest. That if you catch a fish, doesn't matter what it is, and doesn't matter how big it is either. But if the more unique the photo is, the better off it will be. We'll choose the most unique or the best looking photo for the month of June, July, and August. And as long as you take that photo with a bush light in it, in the photograph somewhere, either you're holding it or it's there or doing whatever, we will pick out the best prize, best photo for the prize, which is a 30-pack of bush light as well as some bush light swag. So again, courtesy of Beal Distributing and Dakota Angler. If you have any questions about those contests, feel free to give us a call at 605-336-9132. Well, folks, that's this week's version of the 2-Minute Fishing Report. For Dakota Angler, I'm the owner, Todd Heitkamp, and as we say around here, fish on! We'll see you next week, folks. Thanks for watching. I greatly appreciate it. And always, stay safe and healthy.